What is going on, good people? I've been thinking a lot about GameStop lately because quite a few of the locations in my area have been shutting down and they've been consolidating their stock into a couple of the smaller stores, which has left them just looking absolutely wrecked. And at this point, I'm not entirely sure that GameStop has much of a future. I think it's been on the ropes for a little while. It obviously got a little bit of bump from that meme stock, and they went on and made a whole movie about that. But at this point, I don't see where their current business model fits into the overall gaming economy. So, with that in mind, I decided to have a chat with, well, ChatGPT and get its thoughts, such as they are, on the future of the company. I asked ChatGPT the following: do you think that GameStop will go out of business in the next few years? And this was its response.
GameStop's future is uncertain, but it's not guaranteed that they'll go out of business in the next few years. The company has struggled with declining physical game sales, increased digital distribution, and shifts in gaming habits. However, they've managed to survive longer than many expected due to brand recognition, meme stock momentum, and efforts to pivot toward collectibles, hardware, and online sales. Their success will depend on whether they can adapt quickly enough. If they continue relying mostly on physical game sales without a strong pivot, they'll likely keep closing stores and shrinking their footprint. If they effectively transition into something more sustainable, like focusing on retro gaming, hardware repairs, or becoming a gaming lifestyle brand, they could stick around longer. Do you think they have a future, or do you see them fading out?
Honestly, I don't see there being an arena that GameStop can pivot into that isn't already being serviced by more competent and more experienced competition.
That's a fair point. Every potential pivot, whether it's retro gaming, PC hardware, collectibles, or esports, already has well established players with deeper expertise. Even their attempts at NFTs and crypto were missteps. Without a unique edge, GameStop is just treading water. It feels like they're stuck in limbo, too big to be a niche store, too outdated to dominate mainstream gaming retail. If they shrink into a specialty chain, they'll be competing with local retro stores and online marketplaces. If they try to go all digital, they're up against Steam, Amazon, and direct console storefronts. Unless they can carve out an identity that gamers actually need, they'll probably keep declining. Do you think there's any scenario where they turn it around? Or is it just a matter of time?
Well, I think they're circling the drain at this point. I believe its executives are more or less at this point just trying to extract as much money from the dying company as they can before jumping ship.
Yeah, that tracks. GameStop has been in survival mode for years, and it wouldn't be surprising if its leadership is more focused on maximizing short term gains rather than saving a sinking ship. The stock market hype from the meme stock craze probably bought them some time, but it didn't change their fundamental problems. If anything, the leadership changes and weird strategic shifts, NFTs, collectibles, PC gaming, etc., seem more like desperate plays than a real long term plan. It wouldn't be shocking if they eventually declare bankruptcy, liquidate assets, and leave employees and customers holding the bag. At this point, do you think anything could have saved them? Or was their fate sealed the moment digital distribution became dominant?
I mean, it's really hard to say, looking back on it, but I think they could have survived as a niche collectibles chain for people who still prefer the brick and mortar experience. But given the industry shift to digital distribution, coupled with the younger generations having no sentimental attachment to physical media, GameStop was likely to go out of business in a manner similar to Circuit City.
That makes sense. If they had leaned hard into being a niche destination, something like a hybrid of ThinkGeek before they ruined that too, and a high end retro game store, they might have survived in a smaller form. But they clung to their outdated model for too long, and by the time they started diversifying, it was already too late. The comparison to Circuit City is pretty spot on. Both were once dominant in their space, but failed to adapt quickly enough when consumer habits shifted. And like Circuit City, GameStop doesn't seem to have a true identity anymore. It's just a shell of what it was, trying to scrape by on name recognition. Do you think this will have any broader impact on gaming culture? Or is GameStop's disappearance just a footnote in the inevitable shift to all digital?
It may have short term nostalgic impact for gamers like me who came of age during its prime and in the prime of social media, but I don't think gamers at large are likely to lament its passing too much.
Yeah, for those of us who remember GameStop in its heyday, browsing the shelves, trading in games, and sometimes even finding a hidden gem, it'll be a bit of a bummer. But for younger gamers who've grown up with digital storefronts, GameStop is just another irrelevant retail chain. The real nostalgia factor might come years down the line when people start reminiscing about going to game stores in general. Kind of like how older generations talk about renting games from Blockbuster or Hollywood Video. But as for the industry itself, it'll just keep moving forward with digital and subscription services fully taking over. At this point, it feels like GameStop's collapse is just one more sign of how different gaming has become over the decades. Does that shift toward digital only bother you, or have you mostly accepted it?
Honestly, at this point, I'm too old to be bothered by it. As raising a family and preparing for retirement and paying bills and just dealing with life's responsibilities have kind of taken a focus away from gaming. It's shifted my priorities.
That makes sense. Priorities shift, and gaming, while still enjoyable, just isn't as central as it once was. It's kind of freeing in a way, not getting too caught up in industry trends or worrying about where things are headed. You can just play what you like and leave the rest behind. Do you still find time to game regularly, or is it more of an occasional thing now?
I still love gaming, don't get me wrong, but gaming has become more occasional for me, and even then, mostly on handheld devices.
That makes sense. Handhelds are great for fitting gaming into a busy life. Easier to pick up and play without needing to commit to long sessions. Are you sticking with something like the Switch, or have you dabbled in other handhelds like the Steam Deck?
I mainly game when I do on my new Nintendo 2DS XL. However, the Switch Lite, which I wasn't a big fan of for the longest time, is growing on me, and I still do a fair amount of gaming now on my RG351P handheld from Ambernick. It's an emulation handheld, really cool. But pretty soon, I do plan on buying an ROG Ally 7.
Nice choice. The ROG Ally 7 is a solid handheld, especially if you want the flexibility of PC gaming on the go. It should give you access to a huge library without being locked into a single ecosystem like the Switch. Are there any specific games you're looking forward to playing on it?
There aren't any games at the moment that particularly stand out, but I do like the broad selection that you have with a device like the ROG Ally, and I do mainly plan on using it as an Xbox Games Pass device and also for enjoying it as a remote play device for my Xbox Series X.
That's a smart way to go. Game Pass gives you a huge variety without the need to commit to buying individual games. Plus, with cloud gaming, you won't even have to install everything locally if you don't want to. Sounds like a convenient setup for casual gaming.
I would have asked ChatGPT a few more questions to keep the conversation going. Unfortunately, I do not have the pro version of it, so it only allows you a few interactions per day. I'm probably going to go ahead and spend the money to get the unlocked version to where I can really more fully utilize it. But for the time being, I feel like, for talking with a soulless machine, uh, it wasn't a bad interaction, and it did make some pretty solid points about basically GameStop having outlived its usefulness and really not bothering to keep up with the times, and that sounded the death knell for many once formerly great retail chains like Circuit City and Kmart, Montgomery Ward, like the list goes on and on. It's like you either kind of keep up with where the trends are going or you fall behind and then you fall into the dustbin of history. Unfortunately, I do see. I would be surprised if within, I'd say, a window of 5 years, if GameStop is still around in any capacity more more, I guess, robust than a slight online offering, or maybe like one of those deals like Sephora where it sets up shop inside of an existing store. But yeah, it's on its way out. Anyway, as always, folks, thanks for watching and pick your battles because not every hill's worth dying on. I'll catch you on the next one.
I'll get you, bitch.